Sean Puffy Combs was supposed to have given money to Zip Martin to give to Mr. Davis for payment of the Tupac murder. Fast forward, we go to Mr. Davis. He says he can rekindle that relationship with Mr. Zip Martin and give him to talk about the money that was given from Sean Puffy Combs to Mr. Martin that never got to Mr. Davis.
Keefe D is going to trial for the 1996 homicide of Tupac Shakur, and a retired detective just dragged one of the most explosive allegations in this entire case back into the spotlight. We're talking about a claim that connects one of the biggest names in the history of the music industry directly to a homicide, and it's not being whispered on some forum anymore. It's being said out loud, under oath, in a courtroom. That changes everything about how seriously people have to take it. The detective who took the stand was Darren Dupree, now retired, who testified about conversations that investigators reportedly had with Dwayne Davis, better known as Keefe D, and the content of those conversations, they weren't light. Dupree described allegations involving Sean Combs, specifically a claim that Combs offered money connected to the homicide of Tupac Shakur. Let that sit for a second. This isn't a rumor somebody posted online. This isn't some anonymous tip. This is a former law enforcement officer standing in a courtroom and describing what Davis told investigators directly, on record, in the course of an active homicide investigation.
I believe so. I do believe so. I have proved things that I could say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about. You know what I mean? It's between me and him, and only he knows. So every time he say it didn't happen, or that's the only thing that makes this become an issue to everybody. I was acting. Who gets shot 5 times in acts? Oh, I didn't get 5 times in their vision. I only got shot once because they found the bug. The police found it, but now they the cops. Now they doing detective work.
What makes this even more interesting is the way the conversation with Davis apparently started. Investigators weren't even asking him about Tupac when he first started talking. They pulled Davis in to question him about the 1997 murder of Christopher Wallace, Notorious B.I.G. That was the focus. Tupac wasn't even on the table yet. But according to what came out in court, Davis started volunteering information about Shakur's death completely on his own. He brought it up himself, unprompted. Think about what that tells you. Whether he was trying to negotiate, trying to shift blame, or just talking more than he should have, the fact that he brought Tupac up without being asked says something about where his head was at and how deeply connected he felt to what happened that night in Las Vegas.
Tupac was a shining example of everything that Diddy wanted to be, and he was that naturally. He was charismatic, he was sought after, desired, he was very well liked and a naturally likable person. He was charming, he actually had intrinsic talent, he was a star. He was what Diddy tried to force his way into becoming. Diddy, through force, through manipulation, through fear-mongering, tried to become loved and adored and liked, but all he could manage is like a twisted clone of that he was able to garner through fear. But back to my original point, he thought he triumphed over Tupac by when actually what he did was make Tupac immortal. And by Diddy continuing to live and earn more wealth and, in his mind, earn more adoration, he thought he triumphed. He thought he won overall.
According to Dupree's testimony, Davis told investigators that Combs had offered a financial payment tied to Shakur's homicide, and that the money was supposed to come to Davis through Eric Martin, known as Zip, who was a longtime associate of Combs. That's a specific name, a specific pipeline, a specific arrangement. Davis wasn't just saying Combs was involved in some vague, hand-wavy way. He was describing a transaction. And then he added one more layer to it. He claimed he never actually received the money. So the version of events Davis was putting out there was that a deal existed, that he played a role in what happened, and that the payment he was supposedly owed never came through. That's a very particular kind of story to tell, and it raises a whole set of questions about why he was telling it and what he expected to get out of it. Now here's the detail that honestly sounds too strange to be made up. The conversation where Davis allegedly laid all of this out didn't happen in some sterile police interrogation room with fluorescent lights and a metal table. It reportedly took place at Greenblatt's Deli on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. If you're not from LA or you're younger, Greenblatt's was a genuinely iconic spot, a deli that had been operating in that city for decades. It was a neighborhood institution with a loyal following before it permanently shut its doors in 2021. The notion that one of the most consequential conversations in a decades-long homicide investigation happened over food at a deli on Sunset Boulevard is almost absurd. But that's apparently exactly what went down. High-stakes confessions don't always happen where you'd expect them to.
And did you guys or Mr. Davis come up with a plan to get leverage on Mr. Williams, Zip? And what was the idea?
Me, Detective Kading, ATF Jim Black, and Keefe D, Mr. Davis, flew to New York so Mr. Davis can work undercover to try to rekindle that friendship and business relationship with Zip.
And when Mr. Davis goes in to, do you remember the name of the club?
It's called the Zip Code in Harlem.
Does he in fact meet with Zip?
Zip, he did, but from what we gathered from Mr. Davis told us, he passed him off to his nephew, meaning Zip passed him off to his nephew to do business with him. Zip had cancer or something like that. He was sickly. He said he wasn't in the business no more, something like that. So it didn't work.
So he was unable to reestablish a business relationship and do a drug deal with Zip so that you would have leverage to then talk to Zip about what Mr. Davis told me. I'm just confirming the information you just provided. What?
You're just confirming that the information that you just were provided is what?
I'm just confirming the information that he just testified to.
So then, overruled. You may answer.
Yes, he couldn't rekindle the relationship.
And so you come back from New York.
Yes.
At some point, does the LAPD establish whether or not LAPD officers were involved in the murder of Mr. Wallace?
We found out that there was not any police officer involved.
Here's what's important to understand, though, and it's a point that deserves some real attention. None of the allegations involving Combs are breaking news. Not even a little bit. Davis had been talking about this stuff for years before any of this landed in a courtroom. He gave interviews where he touched on it. He wrote about it in his memoir. The broad strokes of the story had been floating around in public for a long time, and plenty of people had already heard some version of it. So what changed? Why does it hit differently now? The shift happened in September 2023, when Davis was formally arrested and charged with homicide. Once that happened, every single thing he had ever said publicly became evidence, or at least potential evidence. Every interview he had ever given, every quote attributed to him, every page of that memoir suddenly got examined under a completely different kind of scrutiny. People who had treated his past statements as interesting but unverifiable celebrity gossip now had to reckon with the fact that this man was a named defendant in an active homicide case. His words stopped being background noise and started being part of the public record in a way that actually mattered legally. The context around everything he had ever said shifted overnight. That's the thing about cases like this. The facts don't necessarily change. The names stay the same. The timeline stays the same. But the weight behind everything shifts the moment official charges are filed, the moment a detective takes the stand, the moment a deli conversation gets read aloud in a courtroom. Suddenly, the story that people half believed or half dismissed for years is sitting in front of a judge and jury, and everyone has to figure out what to do with it. Combs has pushed back on these allegations every single time they've surfaced. He's denied any involvement in Tupac's death consistently and publicly, and it's worth being crystal clear about what that means legally. He has never been charged with anything connected to that homicide. Not once. That's not a minor footnote. That's the starting point for any honest conversation about this. So what exactly did Dupree actually say on that stand? He testified about what Davis allegedly told investigators. That's the chain here. It's not a court finding, it's not a verdict, and it's not even Dupree's own first-hand account of events. It's a retired detective relaying what a suspect said years ago to law enforcement. The allegation belongs to Davis, and Davis, for all his talking, was still making a claim, not proving one. Davis remains the only person who has ever been formally charged with the homicide of Tupac Shakur. Prosecutors laid out their case by connecting him directly to the events of September 7th, 1996, and everything that led up to them. The night it all started wasn't even the night of the shooting. It was earlier, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, during the Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon fight. That's where the fuse got lit.
Lane starts. You say Suge looks over, he sees you.
Yeah.
He looks right at you.
Yeah, he look at me.
Okay. When he looks over at you, and then Tupac's busy getting. Evidently, the story is Tupac's trying to either get out of
In
the
the
line.
back seat or something.
Yeah. What do you see happening inside of their
Jumping
car?
in. I seen him going Suge head. I thought he was.
So Orlando across Dre?
He leaned over on the window. We rolled down the window.
Davis's nephew, Orlando Anderson, got into a physical altercation with Shakur and several members of Death Row Records inside that venue. It wasn't a small scuffle that got brushed off. Prosecutors argue that brawl set off a chain of events that ended with a drive-by shooting just hours later. Shakur was struck by multiple bullets that night. He held on for 6 days before dying on September 13th, 1996. He was 25 years old. Now think about the timeline for a second. Nearly 30 years went by before anyone faced a single charge for that murder. 30 years. In that time, entire careers were built on speculation about what really happened. Documentaries, books, long-form interviews, podcasts, investigative series, you name it. The theories piled up. Some people pointed fingers at Death Row. Some pointed at Bad Boy. Some went further, pulling in names and connections that were never proven. And through all of it, the case sat cold. What investigators are doing now is going back through that mountain of material, pulling out statements that were made years after the shooting, conversations that happened in private, admissions that were recorded or recalled, and trying to stitch them into something a jury can follow. That's not easy. These aren't fresh witnesses with fresh memories. These are people recounting things that happened decades ago, and the credibility of every single one of them is going to be tested hard. Dupree's testimony didn't prove Combs paid anyone to kill Tupac. What it did was place something specific on the record inside a courtroom. Keefe D himself was making that allegation to law enforcement long before this ever became a criminal trial. That changes the weight of it slightly. It's not someone saying it on social media or in an interview trying to sell a book. It's Davis apparently telling investigators, and now that's being heard by a jury. Davis's own account also includes a detail that doesn't exactly make him look sympathetic. His version of events suggests that whatever financial arrangement he believed was in place never actually came through. He was allegedly promised something, and by his own telling, he didn't get it. Whether that makes his story more believable or less, that's for the jury to sort out. Defense attorneys are going to have a field day with the credibility questions here. And they should. That's their job.
Yeah, I hate that happened, dog. I really do, man. Cause it took a lot of people's lives, dude. Hate that happened. Probably to God. I feel that was wrong, man. It was just wrong, purely wrong. You know what I'm saying? I wish it had never happened. You know what I'm saying? That's my opinion on it. It never happened, dude.
The bigger picture is that this trial is pulling back the curtain on one of the longest unresolved chapters in hip-hop history. The homicide of Tupac Shakur didn't just shock the music world in 1996, it left a wound that never really closed. Every few years, something new surfaces. A name, a claim, a document, and people get pulled right back into it. Now, there's actually a trial happening, with witnesses, testimony, and evidence being introduced in a real courtroom. That's a different thing, entirely, from everything that came before. And it sounds like Dupree's appearance was only the beginning. There's more testimony coming, more witnesses, more details that are going to surface as this case moves forward. Every session is going to add another layer to a story that's already extraordinarily complicated. If you want to stay locked in on every development as this trial unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss anything. Drop your take in the comments too, because there's genuinely a lot to dig into here, and the community conversation has been on fire. We want to know what you think is really going to come out before this is all over. See you in the next one.